Weeds are usually always a problem for peanut farmers, but they can be eliminated with some back-breaking work like this. Oklahoma farmers are expected to produce 260 million pounds of peanuts this year. That prediction will just about equal 1979 production. For 1982, well, major changes are expected. The U.S. Senate has approved a measure ending peanut allotments. Ken McFall, Executive Secretary of the Oklahoma Farm Bureau, says his organization does not favor the amendment.
We were favoring Senator Helm's bill, which would have retained acreage allotments. But I want to point out that we lost a skirmish yesterday and not the war, because the House has yet to act on the farm bill. They will not take it up at all until the Senate completes it, which may be today. And the House committee version on peanuts is much more favorable to Oklahoma producers.
The approved measure ends allotments but continues poundage quotas. Those farmers with poundage quotas would be the only ones to receive government price supports for their peanuts. New peanut growers would not have price support protection. Ben McCain, Action 4.
The Kerr McGee Corporation has bought about 1,500 acres of land between Gore and Warner, adjacent to I-40, on which they want to apply a byproduct fertilizer from their uranium processing plant. Kerr McGee currently has lined ponds on their property, which are the disposal sites for their solid waste. The purified liquid waste, which has the radium removed, is piped down to self-containing ponds directly south of the plant. Well, for the past 2 years, the company has been applying this liquid to their own land as a grass fertilizer. Now they want to put it on the newly acquired land between Warner and Gore. Residents in that area oppose this move and held a town meeting tonight to talk with Kerr McGee officials. The citizens are afraid the byproduct is harmful.
My basic concern is there might be some type of toxic spill into the well water and create problems later. Also, I'm concerned about the buildup of toxic waste which might come about through the use of this type of fertilizer.
I don't necessarily want it out there, really. I live too close to it. It just, too many things that can happen. And after it's already happened, who's going to clean it up?
This afternoon, Kerr McGee plant manager Jim Craig stressed there's no toxic level in the liquid and that a great deal of testing has already been done.
We have reports that have been made to the NRC, and we have publications from veterinary magazines where cattle tests that were run have also been reported.
Craig hopes tonight's meeting will quell any fears the neighboring residents have about the byproduct fertilizer, but the residents are taking a wait-and-see attitude before deciding any further action. In the meantime, it may take up to 6 months before Kerr McGee gets a decision from the NRC as to whether they can proceed with the disposal. Carol Lambert, Action 4, in Warner, Oklahoma.
Things in Enid, Oklahoma and Garfield County are running as usual today. There's a cautious hush in the county courthouse on the town square. After Monday morning, the names in this door will have to be removed. None of the commissioners were available for comment this afternoon, but the Enid townspeople expressed disappointment with the news.
Very disappointed to hear this, and I am surprised and shocked.
And I just hope we'd be immune. I think we've had reasonably good county government under the present system. I don't think it's a matter of being above or below. I think it's the system that's been here since the year one. And I think it could be improved.
Oh, I was kind of surprised that anything like that go on in Garfield County, or I really don't think it was anything that serious, or, something that happens probably quite more frequently other places and more severe other places than Garfield County. I was really surprised.
The resignations this morning make Garfield County the 6th county to lose all 3 of its commissioners at one time. That's not an easy situation for any county to handle. The employees that we talked to today are uncertain how the responsibilities of the commissioners will be taken care of. But one thing is sure, Garfield County, like the 5 other counties that lost their commissioners, will have to make do as best they can until new commissioners can either be appointed or special elections are held. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, at the Garfield County Courthouse.
Just in case you've forgotten, tomorrow there's a special election in Oklahoma County for the District 3 Oklahoma County Commissioner's seat. The candidates are Republican Fred Snyder and Democrat Charlie Swinton. Once that election is over, Oklahoma County will have 3 county commissioners. There aren't too many counties in the state that can say that. And after many county commissioners resign after pleading guilty or being found guilty of taking illegal kickbacks while in office, we thought we'd just bring you up to date on just who's in and who's out of office. Keep in mind, each county should have 3 commissioners. The shaded area of this map points out counties where current and former commissioners have pleaded guilty or been found guilty of taking kickbacks. The number inside the county shows how many commissioners were involved in that particular county. All total, 40 current commissioners left office as a result of the corruption investigation, and 12 former commissioners. 21 of Oklahoma's 77 counties are involved so far. Besides commissioners, 6 material suppliers have admitted their guilt in the kickback schemes and are agreeing to help the government. Former Oklahoma County Commissioner J.P. Dick Richardson is the only person still scheduled to go on trial to face 15 counts of extortion and mail fraud. All others who went to court concerning kickbacks were found guilty, and authorities predict 250 people will eventually be found guilty in the coming weeks. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Each day, more workers arrive in Elk City looking for the pot of gold at the end of the oil rainbow. Now, most of these modern-day pioneers find jobs easy to come by, but finding a decent place to live, well, that's another story. The Old City Hotel is a good example of Elk City's housing problem. The building is so overcrowded, some of its tenants have begun pitching tents in the backyard. Paul Logan is one of those tent residents. The promise of an oil field job lured Logan to Elk City 7 weeks ago. 3 hours after arriving in town, he had a job, but he couldn't find a place to live. So he pitched his tent in the local park until the city made him move.
I was there for 3 weeks, and we got the notice that everybody had to be out of there by a certain day. All right, so everybody moved, and if they wasn't out, they was going to be thrown in jail. All right, so everybody moved, and I luckily got this place for $10 a week to park my tent. And been here for 4 weeks, and there's just no place to go now, or we're getting thrown out of here.
Another temporary city has popped up near Elk City Lake. Here you can find families living in cars, buses, or tents. The workers are the lucky ones. They get to leave the canvas city for at least a few hours each day, but their families must struggle to make do with primitive facilities. It's tough to raise a family without electricity or running water.
Well, it's just a little bit harder by keeping the place clean and your kids a lot. She likes to play in dirt, and can't keep her clean unless we go down to the lake and wash her, and that's a lot harder that way.
The Elk City Commission has decided to let private enterprise meet the town's housing needs, but city officials admit it will take time for contractors to catch up with the demand.
I don't feel like that they're anyways near close to providing the needed housing at this time with the amount of construction that's going on and the proposed and planned new construction. It's going to take a period of time for that to catch up.
The approaching cold weather will probably force some of Elk City's temporary residents to find work elsewhere, but unless some apartment construction is completed this winter, Job seekers will face the same problem finding a place to live next spring. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Elk City.
Albert Weisbrod's a farmer near Union City. Every day, Albert pumps his well to water his livestock. Freshwater wells are a necessity for farmers in this rural area. Now they're being threatened by possible pollution from a saltwater drilling company. The S&L Disposal Corporation wants to build an underground disposal well along with open basins which would hold the waste material while the remaining oil is skimmed off the top. Albert and other farmers in the area feel they must put a stop to the drilling sites to protect their fresh water supplies. People in the area are not opposing a saltwater disposal well below the ground, but they are upset about open pit dumps above the ground. They're afraid that leakage from the pits will sift into the nearby dry creek and destroy valuable acres of farmland and contaminate nearby freshwater wells.
Well, once it gets in the groundwater, the land is worthless for growing anything. It completely desolates it. It's good for nothing.
Kenny Franks, along with the others, feel the disposal sites being railroaded through. They claim they were not properly notified about the permit hearing, so they got up a petition asking for another hearing. On October 19th, they plan to speak loud and clear against the proposal. Carol Lambert, Action 4, near Union City.
Few people enjoy standing in line at the airport. Some don't even like to fly. But everybody appears to be pleased to have a ticket for this flight because unlike the rest of Oklahoma, these people will not be in front of the tube Saturday afternoon. They'll be front row center in the Los Angeles Coliseum as the Oklahoma Sooners line up against the Trojans from the University of Southern California. Today's hassle and hardship of travel are but a small price to pay in return for the privilege to view this clash in person with 90,000 other people, most of them for USC. Well, nevertheless, outnumbered as they may be, the Sooner faithful will not be discouraged by USC's so-called student body play, running back Marcus Allen, or for that matter, anybody else.
OU to 3. Now they're going to win by about 3 touchdowns. Yeah, we're going to beat them with 2 touchdowns. Oklahoma by 3.
A plane load of happy OU fans on their way to see if the Sooner wishbone can fork the nation's #1 team. Hopefully, they'll have reason to be happy on the return flight. Larry Otis, Action 4.
The housing industry has been severely cramped in the recent months. High interest rates have kept most home buyers shying away. Everyone keeps waiting for the economy to stabilize, inflation to decrease, and of course interest rates to come down. For the most part, homes are smaller these days, but cost a great deal more. Dennis Nevius has been a realtor for the past 5 years, and during that time he's seen the prices of homes just about double. Well, now a nationwide study forecasts that today's home prices will again double by the end of this decade. The question arises as to what to do. Wait for interest rates to come down, or buy a home now at a lower price than what it will cost in a few years. Nevius thinks buying now is a better choice.
The hedge against inflation, at least in the past, has been a home, the #1. And if people can get into a house, now is the time. With the rates coming down, the prices are going to make up that difference. Their total payment will probably come out about the same.
The national study says the spiraling cost of homes may lead to dangerous divisions between those who can afford houses and those who can't. But we all know there are no absolutes in predicting the future. Carol Lambert, Action 4.
The Ford Escorts and Mercury Lynx have been a good model for the Ford Motor Company. The styling and the high mileage on the cars has made them popular with a lot of American consumers. But given the right circumstances, some of the cars could pose a possible hazard, perhaps resulting in a car fire during fill-up. Ford Motor Company has issued a service recall on the models built before December 12th of last year, notifying owners to have their cars serviced to correct the defect.
In Group A, we'll say, there is no ground strap from the fuel neck to the body of the car. In Group B, there is a fuel suppression rod that goes down into the tank that they have determined is too short.
The defect caused a fire of an Escort in Massachusetts. Payne explains that the possibility for such a fire is rare, but Ford doesn't want to take any chances. Charles Schnetzer, Action 4.
Former Oklahoma County Commissioner J.P. Richardson arrived in federal court today for the first day of testimony. Because of poor health, Richardson must use a wheelchair or crutches to get around on. The former county commissioner is charged with 15 counts of extortion and mail fraud in the statewide FBI probe into county government corruption. Oklahoma County Clerk Jerry DeWitty was the first person to take the witness stand. DeWitty identified more than a dozen purchase orders and payments for pipe bought from Midwest Steel Corporation, in addition to orders and payments for lumber bought from supplier Guy Moore. Prosecutors allege Richardson extorted more than $10,000 in kickbacks from Midwest Steel and Guy Moore. All other Oklahoma commissioners charged with taking kickbacks have been found guilty or pleaded guilty to the charges. However, Judge Luther Eubanks has reminded the jury over and over again, don't let the actions of other commissioners influence them now, and to only give a verdict for Richardson after all the testimony has been presented. In cross-examination, the jury listened as the defense pointed out signatures on the purchase orders were not signed by Richardson, but rather put on the orders with a rubber stamp. Tomorrow, the jury is expected to listen to a secretly taped conversation between Richardson and Moore.
Once again, court proceedings were kept under 4 hours because of Richardson's health. DeWitty was the only person to take the witness stand today for the prosecution. The government is trying to show that purchases were made for District 3 while Richardson was the county commissioner. The defense is not arguing that fact, but they do say they think someone else ordered the material and not Richardson. Testimony will continue tomorrow in federal court. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
Doris Eaton Travis has memories, part of her life in pages she keeps on a sideboard shelf. 60 years ago, Doris was what every girl in the 1920s wanted to be, a Ziegfeld girl. She was only 14 when she caught Ziegfeld's exacting eye. The glitter of the Follies changed her life. She saved every clipping, every handbill, every photograph of her golden age.
It taught me
a great sense of the beauty of things, because Ziegfeld just had to have beauty all around him, and our costumes were gorgeous, and they always felt so good, and you always felt like you looked like $1 million when you wore them. So that it developed a taste, I'm sure, for better things and good environments. It's more beautiful in retrospect, I suppose, than when I was actually going through it, because that was learning and working, and that's a long time back. It's a pleasant journey.
Doris Eaton Travis spends many an evening with her books and her memories. There aren't many Ziegfeld girls left. They'll keep the glitter and fanfare alive to the very end. It's a way of life. Mr. Ziegfeld would have wanted it that way. Sue Lauer, Action 4.
Oklahoma Vietnam veterans say they're still fighting a battle, like Vietnam veterans are around the country. And they want the Veterans Administration to recognize what the enemy is. The enemy is Agent Orange. But the Vietnam veterans say they're not the only victims, but their children are too.
The herbicide Agent Orange was supposed to only kill plant life and vegetation in the Vietnam War, making it easier to spot enemies on the ground for air attacks. During the Vietnam War, there were 10.5 million gallons of the chemical sprayed over battle sections. And now, some 10 years later, Vietnam veterans who fought around Agent Orange say the herbicide is making their lives a living nightmare. Oklahoma vets are forming the Brotherhood of Vietnam Veterans of Oklahoma, the purpose to lobby to the federal government about what they feel Agent Orange has done. There are claims of cancer and birth defects in children whose fathers were exposed to Agent Orange.
The proof of exposure is so great that in April of '81, the U.S. Senate presumed exposure to Agent Orange to anyone that was in South Vietnam during the spraying. Anyone in country is presumed exposed to this deadly toxin by the U.S. Senate.
The new organization is also designed to help any Vietnam vet and his or her family in civilian life. Oklahoma vets promise to make the nation listen to what they say is a legitimate complaint. Ed Stewart, Action 4.
In many ways, the Oklahoma Czech Festival in Yukon, Oklahoma is a lot like most other festivals. It's a place for state artists to peddle their paintings and prints. There's pottery for the home-minded, bull riding for the young and daring, and there are organizations trying to raise funds for their charitable causes. But for all the likenesses, there is a difference. The festival is distinctively Czechoslovakian. There is a lot to remind one of the homeland here. Czech crystal and figurines imported from Europe, serving as mementos of a heritage. And then there's the music and the dancing. enriches for more than just the rich in years. It's a wealth for the young as well. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the Czech Festival.
People after the Iranian situation, now this situation with an assassination, highlighting the instability of governments in the region.
You think that what's happened has killed off AWACS were it to come to a vote this month?
Yes, I think so. I think it was already trailing. As I told Secretary Haig, I don't think the votes were there. But until we see what direction the new government is going to take, and I would predict that it will be sort of a military cooperative effort for the near future. I also would predict that there will be a great deal of instability within the
This was the scene Friday night, a roadblock set up at Northwest 10th and MacArthur. Drivers were stopped and checked for licenses, inspection stickers, and car tags. And if they appeared drunk, they were given breathalyzer tests. 42 people flunked the test. The punishment? A minimum, 3 days in jail. Some people think of it as entrapment, but District Attorney Bob Macy says it's not, and he explains why the roadblocks will continue.
My hope is not to arrest people. My hope is to reduce the number of drunk drivers out there. But Bella, bear in mind, we were out there for in operation maybe 4 hours. We arrested over 50 drunk drivers. We covered less than 1/20th of the city, which means that on that Friday night while we were out, there were over 1,000 drunk drivers prowling the streets of Oklahoma City. And this is scary.
This crackdown might prompt some people to say that it'll lead to overcrowding of the county jails. Well, it is true that on Friday night, a number of offenders spent the night on the floor, and that could happen again this Friday night. But District Attorney Bob Macy says he is serious about this crackdown, and the offenders, sleeping on the floor or not, are going to have to pay the consequences. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the county jail